Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel,
Sudan is a country that has been in war for 2 decades.
the lost boys of Sudan, their struggle for freedom and their faith in God.
I'm Peggy Weber, and I'll be bringing you the story of a seminar on faith and reason for Catholic school teachers.
And the history behind New England's great state fair. These stories and more are just ahead on this edition of Reel to Reel from the Big E in West Springfield.
From throughout Western New England and beyond, this is Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. Here is your Reel to Reel host, Sharon Roulier.
Hello and welcome to Reel from the grounds of the Eastern States Exposition in West Springfield, home of the Big E, the largest fair in the Northeast. For close to 100 years now, this fair has been a showcase for what the New England states are known for, agriculture. And over the decades, it has evolved to include an extravaganza of entertainment, exhibits, crafts, and of course, everyone's favorite, food. Much more on this last blast of summer coming up. But first off, Pope Francis visited refugees at the Jesuit Center in Rome last week. He called on Catholics throughout the world to reach out to assist refugees fleeing war-torn countries. Tonight, we continue our series on what the Diocese of Springfield is doing to help refugees. Reel to Reel's Carolee McGrath spoke to 2 young men who were part of a group known as the Lost Boys. As she tells us, their struggle, survival, and their faith in Christ is an inspiration to everyone who hears their story.
34-year-old Adim Malek thanks God for all of the blessings in his life. Adim is a proud American. A devout Catholic, Adim attends St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield and St. Mary's in Hamden. He's a graduate of Our Lady of the Elms College, where he majored in marketing. At first glance, he looks like any other young, successful professional. But his story, his history, includes heartache that most people couldn't even imagine.
I was just living in a village as any other child that is born in any part of the world. But since Sudan is a country that has been in war for 2 decades, one time my village got attacked so bad that most of the houses were burned down into ashes and all the livestock were taken and everybody was displaced.
Adim was separated from his parents when his village in South Sudan was attacked during the Second Sudanese Civil War, which lasted from 1983 to 2005. He's part of a group called the Lost Boys of Sudan, little boys who were separated from their parents or in many cases orphaned. The war claimed more than 2.5 million lives.
I happened not to be at home because you know how boys want to play around. And so when this attack happened, I was playing outside with other boys somewhere and I couldn't have a chance to go back home to reunite with my family. But I got myself in the company of other elders because in South Sudan, a child is a child for everybody in the family, in the village there. So they took care of us by telling us where to hide, and the fighting in the village went on that nobody happened to go back to where they live.
So Adim stayed with the group as they walked for days, weeks, and months on end to find safety, first in Ethiopia, later at refugee camps in Kenya.
We lost some of our friends on the way due to lack of food, and we lost some of the people due to starvation and wild rivers and wild animals attacking us all the time. But you know, not everybody could die. So whenever there is a bad situation, some people survive. Not everybody could die because it's according to God's plan, because He reserved some people to be witness of what happened.
Jewish Family Services helped settle Adim in Springfield when he came to the U.S. as a refugee in May of 2005. Catholic Charities helped Adim and other refugees as they found new hope in America.
We are grateful for all these people that have been part of our lives, and making friends also help us. As we settled here, it was tough, but we were open to make friends and make new families.
But Adim, who became a U.S. citizen in 2010, says he'll never forget the other lost boys who became his brothers as they triumphed over tragedy. Peter Abolish Madal was also part of that group of the lost boys. He came to the U.S. with Adim as a refugee.
In the morning, it was about 5 in the morning, 6. So the militants, which sent by the Khartoum government, started shooting people in the village. So we started running away, trying to escape the shooting. So I found myself in a different direction with my cousin. So my mom and other siblings found themselves in a different direction, and that's how I separated from my parents.
Peter also ended up in refugee camps in Ethiopia. Then he went back to Sudan and later to Kenya. He says he was only 4 years old, maybe. His older cousin was about 9, and he took care of him while thousands of little kids died along the way.
It took us long walk. There was no shoes, there was no clothes, no food. People surviving in a terrible living.
You would think that with everything that Peter and Adim went through and the horrors that they witnessed, that they would be angry with God. It would be a natural reaction. But Peter and Adim say that their faith actually grew during those times of great suffering. And they say they always felt that Christ was carrying them through. Peter says he became a Christian while he was in the refugee camps. He says God is his hero.
I thought God was the only person that I know after my mom, my father were not there, because I took him as my father, I took him as my mom, and because if I want to talk to somebody, he's the only person to talk to.
Peter, who became a citizen in 2011, is also studying at the Elms. He's majoring in social work and religious studies. He works at Yankee Candle and interns for Catholic Charities. Adim works for Valet Park of America and is also working on establishing a nonprofit to build a medical clinic and school in South Sudan.
Having God in one's life is something important, not only because when you are suffering, but every time because you will need Him anyway. Yeah, so God is what has brought us to US, is what has been with us in our lives, is what has been protecting us. And so we may not be doing enough of His word, but we know we believe in Him and we are trying our best with His strength. We will do what He wishes us to do.
And both he and Peter want to give back by helping others who are struggling and by sharing Christ's message of hope and love. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
In the last 3 years, 1,200 refugees have settled in West Springfield and about 700 in Springfield. While Catholic Charities does not resettle refugees, they do help with support services, as they do with others in need. And we'll keep a close eye on the only dispute in Springfield regarding the future of refugees being resettled in that city. Long before they welcomed their students back this September, some area Catholic school teachers themselves headed back to the classroom, attending a nationally acclaimed 3-day Faith and Reason seminar. Peggy Weber tells us more.
It was back to the books for about 20 educators from Cathedral, St. Mary's, and Holyoke Catholic High Schools this summer. They listened to talks about the art of Michelangelo and discussed the works of G.K. Chesterton and other learned scholars. A good portion of the focus was on the papal document Fides et Ratio, Faith and Reason, by Blessed Pope John Paul II. The seminar was run by Patrick Powers and sponsored by Michelle and Don Demore of Big Y Foods. Michelle praised this summer school experience.
I think it'll be a nourishing thing for the faculty to help them promote Catholic education, to enrich enrich the souls of the students that they're teaching. So it's a really pivotal time to be a productive member of society, a future business leader, and work in the world today. Nothing has changed. You need some kind of moral compass.
Powers has presented Faith and Reason seminars on the college level since 2006. Recently, he has expanded them to secondary education.
Secondary education is the moment in which you can capture their souls awake and nurture something that doesn't die once it is snapped up by the world, which is what happens in college with the demand for careers.
Ann Southworth, president of Cathedral High School, helped organize the seminar and said she was thrilled it was being held in the Diocese of Springfield.
It's extremely important for educators to have a chance to get together and to learn together, to challenge each other, to listen to one another, to read the great writers and thinkers in history, so that we come back recharged and we are thinking and we're reasoning and it informs our faith and we've done it together.
Jeremiah Begley, a teacher at Cathedral High School, said the Faith and Reason seminar and the Catholic intellectual tradition were of interest to him as a Catholic school teacher.
Well, I think if you look at, the encyclical Fides et Ratio of John Paul II, he's talking about how faith, the positive faith that we get from Scripture and from tradition and from the magisterium, is intimately connected to reason. And when we use our exercise of reason, that's not contradicting our faith, it's actually strengthening and informing it. And faith and reason both inform each other. And I think that's a key insight that's been all but lost in today's world, and it's something that I really want to pass along to my students.
They all came together, guidance counselors, business managers, history teachers, and yes, even religion teachers. They came to discuss the role of faith and reason. But they all come from diverse backgrounds, but are joined by their love of their faith and their desire to impart it to their young students.
The educators had long, full days with homework. They also had time for eating together and, of course, praying together. They recognized that what they are doing is much more than conveying bits of information.
Catholic education is so important because it gives the young people a goal, a point of reference that is the truth. And it talks about the truth of God and creation through all the disciplines. So throughout their whole life, they understand that each discipline does not stand on its own. It's all connected, and it's all connected through God.
Jeremiah, who will be teaching a new IB course in the history of knowledge and rekindling the Latin program at Cathedral, says he is a big proponent of Catholic education.
I think Catholic education is important because it educates the whole person, mind, body, and soul. And I think that other forms of education, while they might learn a lot of facts, fall short of true wisdom because they don't speak to that immortal soul that's created by God and placed in a person at conception.
And Anne said she hoped that the seminar will be repeated for more Catholic educators and that it will ignite an energy and a support system for teachers. For Real to Real, I'm Peggy Weber.
And you can learn more about Catholic schools in our region by logging on to the diocesan website, diospringfield.org. Providing your son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter with a gift of a Catholic education that can last a lifetime. Still to come on Real to Real, Dan Dumas will take a look at what's happening in the Diocese of Springfield. And the Big E brings another year of exhibits, fun, and food for people of all ages. These stories and more are still to come from the Big E in West Springfield.
The banquet is ready.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Passionist Brother Terrence Scanlon, your Chalice host, inviting you to join us on Sunday morning at 10. Join us this week as we welcome Father Gary Daly as our Mass presider, chaplain and director of the Newman Catholic Center at UMass Amherst. The Chalice of Salvation, your spiritual connection, Sunday mornings at 10 here on TV 22 News.
There's something for everyone here at New England's Great State Fair, like the Wine and Cheese Barn near the Mallory Arena, where you can sample award-winning wines and cheeses from New England states as well as New York. And there's something for everyone taking place constantly around Western Massachusetts. For a look at some of these events, we turn now to Dan Dumas with a reel-to-reel news brief.
I'm Dan Dumas with your reel-to-reel news brief. Last week, some 500 people gathered at St. Michael's Cathedral for the Pink Mass for those whose lives have been impacted by cancer. This third annual Mass and gathering once again focused on the impact cancer has on the lives of so many. Springfield Bishop Timothy McDonnell, himself a cancer survivor, celebrated the Saturday liturgy.
Anyone who has faced the diagnosis of cancer knows about soul searching. I know many of you here have stories of soul searching, stories of diagnosis, stories of treatment, stories of survival. And I know many of you here have other stories of uncertain outcomes and sad losses.
The bishop reminded the congregation that the age-old question of why people suffer is not yet answered, but Christ showed us the proper approach to suffering. For persons confronting cancer in their lives, this annual gathering brings much comfort.
I think when you have a Mass like this, you bring people together and you are able to realize that we can all survive and to realize that there's a support network out there for you to help you get through this difficult time in your life.
Following the Mass, participants gathered at the Springfield Elks Club for a Celebration of Hope dinner, which raised funds for local cancer support services. There's more on this Pink Mass, along with a photo gallery at iobserve.org. And next weekend, the cathedral will play host to the annual Red Mass, honoring those in the legal profession. This year's honorees include Judge John Agostini, Associate Justice of Springfield Superior Court; John Fitzgerald, Assistant Superintendent at the Hampden County House of Corrections; Judge William Hadley, Associate Justice of Springfield District Court; retired attorney Richard Morrissey; attorney Carla Newton; attorney Maurice Powell; attorney Paula Trudeau; and Judge Paul Vrabel, Associate Justice of Pittsfield District Court. Following the 10 a.m. September 29th Mass, there will be a reception at the Log Cabin in Holyoke. For more information, call 413-734-3119. And it was another celebration honoring the Blessed Mother which took place recently in Greenfield. Terry Hegarty tells us more.
More than 350 worshipers honored Mary with the 18th annual Marian Celebration in honor of the Mother of God, held at Blessed Sacrament Parish in Greenfield. Confessions, scripture readings, and exposition of the Blessed Sacrament took place. Monsignor Ronald Yarjo, pastor of Holy Trinity Parish in Greenfield, says that this celebration was especially important during this year of faith.
What the pastors and the deacons are trying to do in these celebrations is to foster and encourage faith, a way of, if you will, evangelization, trying to reach out.
A variety of outdoor activities were also held as part of the recent Sunday afternoon services. A rosary and Eucharistic procession took place as worshipers marched around the church grounds.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners.
I think it's important that people see that that God is very important in their lives, and actually, I think it reminds them that He's still around, He's still here, and part of everybody's life. But they need to see that, and if we stay inside, they won't.
And as a church community, it's nice to see everybody together, praying and singing outside.
Our new Holy Father, Pope Francis, has told the priest, take Christ into the streets. Take him out of the sacristies and the rectories. Take him into the streets.
The liturgy is held each August and is sponsored by the Franklin County Deanery. 6 area parishes participated. Concluding the day of prayer, worshipers processed back inside for the praying of the Magnificat and a benediction.
While many of us were relaxing this summer, the cast and crew of Holyoke Catholic's Drama Club were hard at work preparing this fall's annual musical. Steve Kiltonic reports.
The Wizard of Oz, one of America's best-loved stories, will be performed by the Holyoke Catholic Drama Club in their first production of the school year. The show is being staged at Ruttenberg Auditorium at Commonwealth Academy, the new home for the school's performing arts program.
It's the first time in a long time that we've had a real auditorium. The acoustics are wonderful.
Audiences will see something a little bit different from the Hollywood classic.
We rented the rights for the actual adaptation from the movie, but we merged it with the stage version. So it's kind of a merge, but it's everything that the audience who loves The Wizard of Oz is expecting.
This month marks the 75th anniversary of the musical fantasy based on the book by L. Frank Baum.
So our costumes are very bright, our staging is very bright, but not so whimsical that it's silly. It's very appropriate. We're using a real dog.
Wicked witch? I ain't afraid of no wicked witch.
2 of the leading characters are veterans of Holyoke Catholic Productions.
I was very familiar with it. It's my mom's favorite movie, so I've seen it a lot as a kid.
Chad Nolan improvised his role as the Scarecrow.
I just kind of took it and interpreted it the way that I thought the Scarecrow was. I didn't really try to base it off of anything I had seen before, but still keeping those aspects of him that everybody knows and loves from the movie.
To see the entire cast, including Miss Gulch, Aunt Em, Uncle Henry, Professor Marvel, the Wicked Witch, and Oz himself, follow the Yellow Brick Road down to Commonwealth Academy.
And you can still see this wonderful production for yourself next Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. at the Commonwealth Academy in Springfield. For tickets, call 413-737-4942. Finally, in other Catholic school news, the annual Catholic Schools Advancement Dinner will take place in a little over a week. Wednesday, October 2nd at the Fairview Castle of the Knights. And this year will mark a keynote talk by UMass men's basketball coach and Cathedral High School alum Derek Kellogg. This is always a fun night, raising important funds for Catholic school tuition assistance. For more information on tickets, call 413-452-0670. That number again, 413-452-0670. You can get more information on that event and keep up to date on all the happenings both here in the Diocese of Springfield and beyond by logging on to our news and information website, iobserve.org. That's iobserve.org. I'm Dan Dumas, and that's your Real to Real News Brief.
The Eastern States Exposition, home of the Big E, has presented an annual state fair promoting agriculture, education, industry, and family entertainment for more than 8 decades. More than 1 million people now attend the 17-day Big E each fall. It is the culmination of a visionary idea first expressed by Joshua L. Brooks at the beginning of the 20th century. Farming in New England was on the decline. Production costs were soaring. His hope was to create an exposition of new farming methods with competitions to inspire excellence. Above all, Brooks believed in developing and showcasing an agricultural New England. Working with 12 community leaders, Brooks spearheaded the purchase of 175 acres of former swampland in West Springfield. It took less than 8 months to construct the Coliseum and cattle barns. Brooks also had the idea to create an avenue of states on the grounds.
He was able to persuade the states of New England to construct replicas of their original state houses on the fairgrounds. And what he did was he gave the land to the respective states. So in each state, and it's very unusual for one state to actually own physical property within the boundaries of another. I'm not sure if that happens anywhere else in the country. So Maine, when you're in Maine, and so on.
This group then persuaded the National Dairy Show in Chicago to come and hold its annual event in West Springfield. In 1916, this National Dairy Show was the first event held on the exposition grounds. It also marked the first time the show was held east of Chicago. And in the fall of that same year, the very first Eastern States Exposition was open to the public. A total of 138,000 people gathered in what would become New England's autumn tradition. To this day, that tradition has been interrupted only twice by 2 world wars. All of the buildings are still the same, including the Coliseum, known as the birthplace of the American Hockey League.
At this stage of its life, the only thing we really use it for are the horse shows, and we do the circus there. But it's sad that we don't have ice in that building any longer, and we just went through a very tumultuous time as we tried to introduce a concept of playing host to a resort facility on the fairgrounds, and we had some hopes for that building. But now we'll move on to sort of trying to rekindle people's interests in the purpose of the Eastern States, its mission, and I will become the biggest fundraiser for the fairgrounds since Mr. Brooks was alive.
It is evident that Brooks' mission does live on and is being passed on to future generations through programs like the Future Farmers of America, where farming is incorporated into the curriculums in schools across the country.
They're learning everything from what it takes to run a business, especially more specifically a farm. So they learn anything from the accounting to the business side of things to also the ag mechanics, how the machines work, how to use them without in the fields. But they really are giving them an all-around basis focus on how to really be able to run a successful farm.
And at the heart of any successful farm, you have to have a genuine love for what you do.
She's a good girl. Her name's Miss Sugarbaker. She's really cute. She's 3 years old. And she's going to have a baby in January.
Caroline Oatley, a high school junior, and her family come from their farm, 12 Oaks in Rhode Island, to showcase belted Galloway cows every year. Belted Galloways are Caroline's passion.
I don't know, it was like what my dad used to do, and it's like father, like daughter or whatever. So I just love it. I love being in the barn with the animals and the smell and just everything. I just love it. It's so much fun, so much fun.
So you see, all of these decades later, the vision of Joshua L. Brooks lives on. So the Big E runs through next Sunday, September 29th, and if you haven't made it down here yet, come on down to the fair. And remember, there are 2 masses held here each Sunday morning for fairgoers, 8 a.m. in the Old Storyton Village Meeting House and 10 a.m. under the circus tent. And thanks so much to Gene Cassidy and his staff here at the Big E for hosting our program today. For all of the news on the church and the Diocese of Springfield and around the world, you can log on to our website, iobserve.org. There you can also read stories from the acclaimed Catholic News Service. That's iobserve.org. And now a new feature that we are introducing, along with individual stories, you can now watch complete episodes of Reel to Reel online on our YouTube channel. Just log on to iobserve.org for a link. So join me anytime online and again at this same time next week for another edition of Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. Have a great week.